I know this is like the worst stream ever. I haven't said anything for the first minute or so. I was just sending that out. A quick tweet about what I plan to do here. I should probably like label this in the actual studio. I don't think I have a title or anything going. Just Jeff Ellis live stream. Um, Let me edit that very quickly. So I'm just putting in the title here. I'll worry about a description later. So my general thought process as I was working on things today, I don't know if anyone's going to jump in on this or not, but he's not receiving enough video to maintain it. Oh, well, apparently I have buffering issues. It's weird that my stream status would be poor. I've never had poor stream status before. And the whole time I've been doing this, hopefully it'll improve. Maybe it's because I'm not recording late at night, but I'm doing it in the middle of the day. But yeah, long story short, short story long. My name is Jeff Ellis. I host Locked On Guardians. Before that, I was a draft writer for Scout 24/7, and I've always loved the draft, all things draft. And I just want to do some more draft content. And if I sat down to do it on the podcast, it's just more work. There's more things I have to do. So this is for fun. This is me wanting to do what I want to do. I don't have to worry about an ad break. I don't have to worry about anything fancy. You know, all of that stuff is great on the podcast. I'm not trying to say anything negative at all about the podcast on any level. I'm very appreciative of everyone at Locked On, but it's a lot more work. So this is just more of a for me. And if anyone hops in, great. If anyone doesn't, well, I got to sit there and do kind of stream of conscious off the top of my head about what I think could occur in about 3 weeks, right? That's where we are. How long until the draft is going to occur? So I'm trying to figure out. But my general idea was I've been seeing more and more people. Talking about the draft, and I just want to kind of chime in, jump in, do my own thing. Because the number one thing I always see is smoke. Everyone likes to tell you one thing or another. And what I have kind of realized over the years is a lot of what you get told by other people is junk. I would say 80 to 90% is junk. And you want to look at the data. Now, sometimes just looking at the data is wrong. I can point to you when Colorado took Zach Veen. I was adamant that I would not mock anyone but a college player to them because they hadn't taken a prep player early in a long time. They took Veen, they took Romo, and both those guys have worked out. But last year they took Benny Montgomery, and then that was the only high school player they took. So that data still, like, there is value to it. There's something to learn. But it's the same reason why I wouldn't mock a high school player to the White Sox until they took Colson Montgomery a year ago. So without further ado, let's just kind of annoyed about my the health of my stream right now. Just look at the settings real quick and see what OBS is doing weird here. I guess I can't even mess with that because I'm in the middle. See what my output. If you stream and record at the same time. Let me try just closing some things and see if that helps. I don't even have that much junk open, but still. I don't know. I'm going to just blame middle of the day as the reason why this is having issues. Oh, the one final caveat on this whole thing is if my child awakes, I have to run. But now, this time, without further ado, I'm actually going to start this mock. So the first overall pick, you have Baltimore. Now, Baltimore has, of late, been the team to go massively under slot, right? I mean, I think we all know that. The one year they did not was the year that Adlai Rushman was up there. And there's basically 3 big points. One, that is a very analytical front office. Adlai was very clearly the best player in that class. He performed at a high level, at an extremely high level, not just kind of like good. I mean, he was far and away fantastic, and he played a position that is nearly impossible to get elite production out of. You combine all of those, and it starts to make sense why they just, even though they debated it, the talk was even that year they debated it, why they went with him. And even like to get a look at last year's class, so they go Colton Cowser 1, then they take Connor Norby, and by the way, their first high school player, Creed Williams, in the 8th round. Some of the talk there was, in the 2nd round, where they took Connor Norby, the plan originally had been to take Jude Fabian, and when Boston popped him and then wouldn't give him his what he wanted, $3 million, they refused to give him that. The Creed Williams is one of those players that benefited. He got that extra money. They went out and signed him as a high school player. And then, the only other high school, I think that is it. Creed Williams was the only Wellams, I should say, was the only high school guy, and they did take a JUCO player, Trendon Craig, who they paid over slot with the 20th round pick. And if you just go back to like the 2020 class, which was a short one, started out all college, 2 high school players later, again went massively under slot, and that Adlai class where it was, they did go prep with Gunnar Henderson, that's worked out, and then they took prep in the 5th round, and this is the old drafting style where, they had 40 rounds. They did not draft another prep player until round 34. So this front office has leaned into college players, and I think for a team, you're getting more data than ever. If you were a heavy analytics team, which Baltimore is, you have more information than you've ever had. You have more data on these players in terms of like TrackMan and advanced data that it's easier when you're sitting there drafting a college guy. You just know so much more now than you've ever known. And I think that's one of the reasons why some of these teams really prefer that college performer. Everyone has Baltimore going, Jackson Holiday or Drew Jones at the top of this draft. That's pretty consistently been that way. If I were to go through and see like even the most updated stuff, like it's been a while since where I projected them to go under slot with someone like Brooks Lee. And back in my way too early mock. And that, no one has them on that anymore. Now the question becomes, what college player would you even consider there? It's Lee or Parada. And then under slot wise, this is where it gets kind of interesting to me, just because you're probably looking at Tamar Johnson or like a name I just want to throw out there in terms of like massively under slot relative to kind of that, like we know Drew Jones is probably going to be and Elijah Green are going to be expensive. Jackson Holiday is probably a slight step below them. Tamar Johnson might be a little bit below them. Cam Collier looked great at the combine. It's a small appearance in the Cape, but still he looked good in his beginning appearance there. If he continues to rake in the Cape, reclassified for this class, so he's 17. There hasn't been a 17-year-old in the Cape as long as anyone can remember. And when you're looking overall at what he did as a JUCO, with his age, with his bloodlines, smaller demands, I'm just saying Cam Collier is definitely my sleeper here. Back in the day when I wrote, I would talk about who I'm projecting and who is a sleeper. It's still hard for me to project a prep player here. I'm going to throw off the whole board, though. I know Cam Collier is my sleeper, but I'm going to project him to go to the Orioles. I'm just going to shoot my shot. I think he's going to be cheaper in that kind of initial group of 6, and I don't think it's a group of 6 anymore. I think it is legitimately with him a group of 7. You look at, age-based modeling, he's there. Bloodlines do matter. There is additional value in that. That is there. Hey, my stream's back to actually not being junk. He marks so many boxes right now. And if he plays well on the Cape, then you have wood bat experience. The combine went great. Like, I'm going to say Cam Collier won, and that they go massively under slot here. I mean, I don't know if it's massive, but he is also going to be a big under slot guy. And I think it is legitimately now, depending on your view on Jackson Berry, this is kind of a top 8 group. So I don't, Berry's kind of the guy here that some people think could still go 1. I don't know about that, but I'm going to go with Cam Collier 1 here, with the sleeper being, see, if Brooks Lee was a sure shortstop, he'd probably be the pick, but he's probably like Gunnar Henderson, who they already have. I think your sleeper here, would they go arm? Could they be the one that like shocks the world and take Connor Prelip, who I think is going to go a lot higher than people expect right now? Probably not, but I think your sleeper probably has to be one of the college guys. And if you're looking at those college performers, I guess as a sleeper right here, it's probably Jackson Berry still, just because he might be, a cheaper sign, and he has some Trey Mancini vibes. I don't know if that's necessarily means anything, but yeah. So you go to the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks in this current front office have been heavy prep. I mean, it is, they go ceiling. The one weird year was the 2020 year when they went very conservative, and I totally missed that for them because I didn't expect it. Go back to 2019. Corbin Carroll's been great. Blake Walton hasn't necessarily, put himself on the map. Brennan Malone, who they've traded, and then Dre Jamison was a bit of a risk as a small school guy, undersized. Ryan Nelson was a reliever, I want to say, at Oregon. I don't know, maybe he was a start, but he had high reliever risk, and he's really come along. Tommy Hunter was a guy. I mean, even someone like Connor Graham, so I talked about and wrote about from his Xavier days. Like, they went for risk in that draft. And then 2020 was AJ Vukovic. I mean, they gave him the 3rd highest bonus, a Milwaukee kid. He was but they went with kind of the safer 2 guys at the top because, again, lack of data that year kind of makes sense. And then last year, it went right back to, hey, Jordan Lawler's on the board, and then they went with a little more safety with Bliss and, man, Adrian De La Castillo. Like, Bliss, both of those guys were thought to be first-rounders at one point. Jacob Steinmetz got a lot of run. Great story is being, I don't want to put the wrong type of, he's, of the Jewish faith. I want to say he was possibly Hasidic, but I could be wrong there. I think that's why it's a bigger deal. But either way, he was a strong pitcher. They got him there. Luke Albright from Kent State. They had a good mix. They go for ceiling, though. They're not afraid to take some gambles throughout. And when you're looking at this, I know I've given a lot of air to say they're going to go Drew Jones, but they do also just. I know they have Corbin Carroll and Alec Thomas, and they have outfielders for days, but they'll go for ceiling, and that's him. Sleeper here. Just considering ceiling and what they have and everything else, might be Connor Prelip, which I know no one has them on, but follow the logic. If he had been healthy, a lot of people think he would have been the top pick in this draft. If you want a sleeper and off the wall selection, getting him massively under slot and then coming back in round 2 and just who's going to slide? There's going to be someone who slides. They might be able to get a second first-round talent and in the 3rd round get another first-round talent by drafting the guy who looked great at the draft combine, and if he'd been healthy, could have been the top overall pick. But again, that is the sleeper selection. I have Cam Collier, and then I have Drew Jones. Rangers are fascinating from the perspective that, they had, man, that's kind of interesting. So because that's batting data. Never mind. The Rangers have been very, very, very conservative of late. Before that, they were the team that always went ceiling. And they had a high amount of, I don't know if I want to say failure, but things didn't exactly go well. I feel like last year was Zavala and Leiter, but then they did go prep for their next 3 picks. 2020. If it'll click over, I don't know, my computer's being slow. You can go back to 2019 with, I believe that was the Josh Jung class, where they jumped out there and grabbed him. It was a bit of a surprise selection at that point in time. He was thought to be further down the board. And then Davis Wenzel, top 4 picks were all college players. It's been a minute since they went prep. And I'm just trying to see, 2018. That was, and Cole Winn has looked good. Owen White has looked good. Jonathan Ornelius at a time looked like he was going to be something big. I liked Mason Enright. Like, it's an interesting class, but since then, and it's been a new front office in place in terms of who's making the calls on these things, and I am curious to see, Justin Foscue. That was the 2020 class, but after him, it was all prep. So, them going with a prep talent is a little bit off the board, but I think right now, when you look at overall team value and you look at board value, the only college player like Parada might make sense here. I mean, he's going to be the sleeper, but I think Jackson Holiday has risen too high. Shortstops are always incredibly valuable on boards, and when you get down to it, Jackson Holiday is the player that makes the most sense. If, again, you want them to, if you think that they might go more of the alerts. This is, again, why it's a non-locked on one, but just me chatting away, having some fun here. If they go college, Parada makes the most sense. They don't have internally in system a lot of catching depth. They went out and tried to trade for catching with Mitch Garver. He hasn't performed super well. They don't really have, in my mind, too many top prospects that are catchers either. So it's just looking through at them. He is the sleeper, but I think Jackson Holiday, just adding that shortstop to the system. Yes, they went out and spent a ton of money on shortstops with Simeon and Seager, but I mean, Simeon's already into his 30s. By the time you get a high school shortstop, like by the time Jackson Holiday hits the big league, Simeon's contract might be up, and Corey Seager might be ready to move to third base. Like, we all know eventually he's probably going to have to move off the position, so you're not that. Josh Smith is a top prospect of theirs who came over, I believe, in the Joey Gallo deal, who's been kind of a utility guy for them. And just looking at this team, it's like Josh Jung, Justin Foscue. My way too early mock was Jace Jung here, and at number 2, I believe, was Elijah Green, because he was kind of the ascending talent at the time. He was supposed to be the generational guy in this draft. So I think here, again, it's just adding the Jackson Holiday ceiling at shortstop. You're getting bloodlines, you're getting high-level performance, you're getting a little bit more safety than someone like Elijah Green or Tamar Johnson. I would not be shocked if it's Tamar Johnson here either, just because he also, I feel like, made himself some money at the Combine with what he has done. Pirates at 4. So the Pirates kind of surprised me. I mean, I believe I ended up getting that right in the mock. But they started this new rebuild by going for ceiling. Almost all of their trades involved trading away just for guys with high ceiling. And then you look at what they did in the 2021 draft, and they took the number 1 guy on my board, don't get me wrong, and Henry Davis. And part of the reason he was number 1 is I knew he'd have lower bonus demands, and he did. And that allowed them to get Solometo, Lonnie White, and Bubba Chandler. So it's like saving money allowed them to get multiple players in the top 40 of this draft class. It was a smart move. Now, are they going to try to replicate it? Potentially. And it's kind of funny because when I think about like saving money early and then spreading it around, it's the Pirates who did that first in my memory. I'm sure other teams have as well. But I always remember when they drafted like Tony Sanchez, I believe was the catcher, who was supposed to be like super safe catcher. And then they, just spent more on later picks. I can't remember when that happened. That wasn't even like during the slotting system, so I don't know what the logic necessarily was, but I remember that very specifically. So, almost everyone has them on college talent. And it is interesting, that it's mostly been reported that, Brooks Lee has been very consistently reported here. Again, he's not a shortstop, probably long term. It's a non-zero chance. Like, I think maybe it works out. We sometimes get too quickly to say someone's not going to work. Obviously, they have some very high prospects at shortstop, and they have Cabron Hayes at third base. So you're like, well, but Brooks Lee could, and then Nick Gonzalez. I mean, they just have a lot of prospects. Let's be honest here. Brooks Lee can hit. Like, I fully believe in him. I think relative to everything, he's still the top college player in this class. I think he makes a lot of sense if they are going to try to go a little bit cheaper. I think at this point in time, if I were to give him a sleeper, my sleeper would be Tamar Johnson, just because someone's going to pop him at some point. And I think he's he looks like a frighteningly good hitter at this age. So at 5, you have the Nationals. It's been widely reported Kevin Parada. I do have Parada. I do have Green. I do have Tamar Johnson. I could see Tamar here. I could see Green here. What do the Nationals like? They like sliding talent. Throughout the years, they have taken, like, everyone does the whole idea of like, oh, they like guys that are hurt. It's not that they like guys who are hurt. They like sliding talent. They like guys who maybe their valuation has dipped a little over the course of the season. They like guys who have, slid on draft day. And that's just, Brady House last year at 11. A lot of people thought he'd be long gone. He could have gone as high as the Tigers in a lot of the discussions that were had going back to the recent first-round picks. Cade Cavalli. A lot of people thought he'd go higher. Jackson Rutledge. I thought he was going to the Braves when they took Shea Langoliers. Mason Denneberg. If he doesn't blow out his arm, people thought he'd go much higher. Seth Romero, if he doesn't get kicked off his team, he goes a lot higher. Carter Kaboom and Dane Dunning, not as much. Eric Fetty was a blown-out arm. Lucas Giolito was a blown-out arm. Anthony Rendon was a player who was viewed as the top overall pick in the 2011 class, then had a little bit of a disappointing year. Plus, that was just an amazing draft class, so he slid a little bit. But just very clearly, it's sliding talent. Nationals are in for a long rebuild, and going through that list, it's prep, college, JUCO, prep, college, like they're all over. Who is the sliding talent? I think Elijah Green here. Again, he was supposed to be the jewel of this class. He is sitting there at 5. They're in for a long rebuild. They have had no problems going for ceiling. And again, the sliding talent is Green. He's the guy who some viewed as generational talent. He's still there. Son of Eric Green, so he's got athletic bloodlines. And I don't even know if it's necessarily his fault. I think there is always the bias of having seen someone too much. And I think there's always the bias of players not being exactly what we want them to be. And I think the athleticism makes sense there. Your sleeper is Parada at this point. Sleeper is Tamar Johnson, honestly, because I think he's probably too valuable. He's being, just because of where I slotted Cam Collier to really shake things up, it's moved everyone down. Marlins are at 6. I think this is where Tamar Johnson goes. I think this is his floor. They seem to like him. There's been connections there. He makes sense with what they don't get obsessed with height, models or things like that. They took Khalil Watson a year ago, tools and the like. He is sitting there for them. I think that's an easy pick. Your sleeper at this point in time is Kevin Parada, because that's like where things kind of balance out. Cubs are at 7. So everyone knows they like Cam Collier. I just don't know if he's going to be there. That's my one thing right now. I think he is going a lot higher. He is rising on lists. You've got the new front office, which is, you can't really judge what they've done in recent years because it's new people at the top. I'm not entirely sure if they kept the scouting director or not. I probably could have researched that ahead of time, but hey. But if I'm just looking at the Cubs and knowing what the Guardians would do in this situation, because that's where your GM came from. When the GMs often have their hands on those first-round picks, because Cam Collier, again, Guardians, you did a lot with age-relative models. It makes a lot of sense to kind of look at such things. Just kind of looking overall at what's here, it is a top 7 draft. Catchers are risky. Would they consider Parada? Maybe. The upside to him is he's a young junior, big power. I think here's the thing. To me, there's a clear 7. So I think Parada makes sense. He also, again, fits an age-relative model for a college player. He's only 20 right now, and I think you don't overthink it too much here. Sleeper Connor Prelip, in case they wanted to jump in on a talented player who's on that board. Twins at 8. Jacob Berry is probably just too easy to not put there. Because to some people, there is a top 8 instead of a top 7. Or if there's some people, there's a top 7 and it's not Cam Collier in there. It's Jacob Berry. I don't know if he has a position, but the Twins drafted Brent Rooker, and they drafted Aaron Sabato, and they'll just draft a bat. And he is, to a lot of people, he's an incredibly valuable player at this point in the draft. I think a sleeper there is Zach Neto, just a potential shortstop, up the middle guy who's, every time I turn around, he is rising. The Royals, I think, they are going to go with an arm. Most people tend to agree with that stance. Now you have to remember they are sizeists there. They are not going to sit back. And I feel like Connor Prelip is probably too small at 6'2". He is Moore is always 6'3" or bigger. He wants bigger arms. Would he go prep? Potentially. It's one of those things that's kind of who fits their models. Who would they like? Who might they jump to get here? What is the standout? It's a little bit tricky. It is trying to find that guy who threads a needle in a class where there isn't great pitching. Let's see. I think recent mocks have kind of been prep heavy with them, and it's like looking at the prep group. Brandon Borea probably doesn't fit their model. Robbie Snelling, Jackson Ferris could. Brock Porter could. Dylan Lesko not so much because he's they have a cutoff. They have a type that they like. It's really a hard situation to slot them. But in the past, Moore has not cared about weird deliveries. He's not, you look at Brady Singer, where a lot of people are like, that's not going to work. He didn't listen. He just kind of went like the production, like the secondary, liked the performance, and went with Singer. If you like the performance, and we know he's like that Oregon State program in the past, Cooper Yerpe, right? Cooper Yerpe might be the guy here. Now, I know it's a crazy high selection of him to put him 9, but if you're looking at them to take a pitcher and you're considering more college than prep, because remember, the future is supposed to be now for them. It doesn't look to be the case, but I think there is a thought process that you want to start getting guys who are going to start hitting sooner, and then not getting obsessed with the fact that he's a crossbody thrower. If you didn't worry about Daniel Lynch or Jackson Kowar or Brady Singer when it comes to some of those, now Lynch had a clean delivery, but it's like you worry about why didn't Kowar develop, worry about some of the stuff with Singer's mechanics. If you're just looking at how these guys perform in college, Jerpe is the dude for them here. Sleeper is probably, Zach Neto. Would they go small school? Potentially. I think he could be a sleeper at this selection. Rockies at 10. I'm, just kind of looking at how they go. They like power. A lot of their high picks have been power picks. They also went with very toolsy guys a year ago, but they've mostly been connected to college talent this year. And the last 2 years have been prep, but after those prep picks, it was heavy on the college side. And their recent first rounders, it's been Benny Montgomery, Zach Veen, Drew Romo, Michael Tagalia, Ryan Rollison, Grant Levine, Riley Pint, Robert Taylor. I'm sorry, fans of the Rockies. So you have that listing. It's like, who are the potential guys with power? Who are the guys who are the college group who could have power? I'm not really talking Zach Neto. I'm not really looking at that type of stuff. I think Justin Crawford still makes sense, but if they're looking another way, I think Jace Jung is kind of the safer guy who might have some power ceiling there, a little bit more than, not necessarily more power, but a little bit safer than Gavin Cross, even because you're seeing a guy who's performed consistently, bloodlines, things like that. So I think getting him there could make some sense for the Rockies. Sleeper is Justin Crawford, son of Carl Crawford. 11th overall selection, the New York Mets. I think it's going to be... excuse me. I think when you're looking at what the Mets do... Well, so you got to not look at what the Mets do. You have to look at what Epler did with the Angels. And there was going for some ceiling there. There was taking some prep players. I think I've talked about Jet Williams, the top 10 player in this class to me. I think he will go in the top half of the first round. We kind of have the upper tier of players have already been cleared out. So it's now like that, the next grouping. It's the guys like Gavin Cross and Brock Porter, Justin Crawford, Dylan Lesko, Brandon Barea. These are kind of the consensus players about this point in the draft. Connor Pralip as well. And I think sitting here and grabbing Jet Williams, giving them another up-the-middle type of player, kind of makes sense in terms of going for the prep ceiling, which is what Epler did last time he had a gig. Tigers at 12. I think we know it's not going to be a shortstop because they don't draft shortstops in the first round. So you can take Zach Neto off, which is interesting. It's the thing. Like, I'm kind of looking at this. I'm like, okay, where's he going to drop? I feel like he's going to be somewhere in here. But if you are the Tigers, Gavin Cross is still on the board. And I think he probably makes the most sense from this tier. Connor Pralip could make some sense here. He'd be the sleeper. Or Prylip, I should maybe pronounce. But either way, I think he would be the sleeper type. And if you're just, like I said, purely discussing, Tigers have been kind of all over the place, college, prep. But they have really liked, toolsy outfielders and going back to Dave Dombrowski days. And then hard-throwing guys. Brock Porter might be tempting there. But I think just where they are, Gavin Cross is a value. I think most people can think he'll go in the top 10. He's still on the board here. So if they are not looking at arms, if they're looking at bats, and specifically college bats, then I think Gavin Cross makes too much sense. Prylip is the sleeper. The Angels at 13. This is where I'm going to put Connor Prylip. Because, even though this isn't just because they drafted a lot of arms a year ago, this is because they're connected to a lot of arms. He would kind of make sense in here. He's the college pitcher that I think makes the most sense. Carson Wisenhunt is also a name to watch as he's finally getting to pitch at ECU, and with just such a dearth of college pitching, the fact that he's out in the Cape and showing anything is like his stock is jumping. Teams always want more college players. If they don't go with Prylip, I think Zach Neto is your sleeper for this pick. If they decide to go for bat. 14, Mets. Another shortstop. We're going to put Neto here. I think he is just going up boards. He's going to slot in somewhere. And, there's the tools there for him to be an above-average starter. Now, you have to deal with the fact that you really haven't seen him face anyone since the Cape, but he was good on the Cape. So, I think, here's the thing. Shortstops, I say it all the time, they're the quarterback of the of the MLB draft. You can always move them off the position. Like Jet Williams, you're like, why would they draft two shortstops? Jet Williams might not be a shortstop long term. He might be. Zach Neto, I think most people think he will be a shortstop long term. Bottom line, either they'll move to another position if the bat can play, or they have incredible trade value. And I think grabbing a pair of shortstops, just in terms of valuations at this point in the draft, make a lot of sense. Padres, it comes down to a few guys. It's like Cole Young, Justin Crawford, Dylan Lesko, Kumar Rocker, because they're not afraid of injuries at all. It's Brandon Barea. Who would they go with? You're just kind of looking at things. I'm going to throw a different player here. Daniel Susac. This is a team that has been trying everything they can to land a catcher forever. Susac is one of those guys who's a little bit sliding, and I kind of called that earlier just because there's limited physical tools. Like, everything works for him. He's going to be average, which is incredibly valuable catcher, but it's not necessarily what teams want with a high pick. They're looking for something that can be a distinct carrying tool. And I think right now I would put him as the selection. Most places he's still, I think, a top 10 player. And then I think your sleeper here is Kumar Rocker. So the Guardians. Neto and Williams are very commonly mocked them. They're both off the board thanks to the Mets. The Mets grabbed two guys that fit the Guardians' approach. It could have made my life a lot easier if I had not mocked one of them out. Cole Young he does not fit age-relative models. And if you're looking at like big board value, I know in my mock over at Locked On, I had Chase DeLauder. I don't know if there is someone here that I just sit back and feel like 100% is like the guy who makes the most sense for the Guardians. I don't know if I have anyone that I feel like a narrative to be filled, as it were, or a player that jumps out at me. I still think with, the lack of a better option, I think I'm going to still go with DeLauder with success in the Cape, age relative to production, athletic tools, size, and again, I don't want to, like James Madison gets a few guys drafted every year, but it's not a top shelf, even lower level program. So you're thinking, well, we can also probably coach the kid up a little bit more. He's going to hear some things from us he may not have heard working at a lower level. That's part of the reason why, it's sometimes viewed as a potential steal when you take a player from a small school, or you're hoping for more growth than than you would with a typical college player. Like I said, if one of the shortstops was there, I probably would have mocked him. With them off the board, I go DeLauder. Pitching wise, Carson Whisenhunt, I think it kind of slots in somewhere around here, and we know they saw ECU a bunch last year. The Phillies at 17. Dylan Lesko. I think, Dave Dombrowski likes guys who throw hard. He has had no problem taking just the highest ceiling prep player. And that would be him. Sleeper Snelling. I could see that just in terms of the athletic profile. The Reds are in kind of an interesting situation. Actually, change that. 17, Brock Porter, because he's still on the board. And I forgot he was still on the board, and he's healthy, and he's not that far behind, and he's the big, hard-throwing guy that Dave Dombrowski loves. Reds at 18 have the chance to grab a few players. Just when you're looking at who are the ones who are ascending, they've got that. They have so many draft picks this year that this is their draft. And when you're looking at who they've been connected with, and they don't seem to be necessarily an age relative model team. Austin Hendricks was not that guy. So I think Cole Young, the shortstop, makes a lot of sense here. Like, he is a name who's been pretty steadily in the top 20. He's kind of the last of that elite tier of shortstops. Peyton Graham would be the sleeper, who's just done nothing but elevate his value this whole College World Series. But those would be the two guys I would kind of really look at with this selection. 19th, the Athletics. Does anybody not have them on Dylan Beavers? It feels like he is universally, every single mock I've read, Dylan Beavers. Either this is the worst kept secret, or it is the best smoke show. If not him, if you want a sleeper, Jacob Melton put up some ridiculous numbers at Oregon State. Doesn't necessarily get the run of some of the other college guys, but yeah, I would just go with those two. I mean, I know I'm not going against it here in terms of what they would do, but yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking. They've typically been more college than prep, so yeah. Again, I know I'm not taking big swings since that first overall pick as much. Braves, a lot of college guys connected with them, and I think I'm just debating Whisenhunt versus Gabriel Hughes versus Blade Tidwell. They have gone with lefties, so I think Whisenhunt makes the most sense at this point in time. They've had a lot of college lefties, a lot of college performers. I think Whisenhunt makes a lot of sense at this point in time because, again, he hasn't had a chance to really hurt himself relative to everyone else with not pitching. I mean, he hurt himself by getting suspended, and the Cape is just helping him elevate his value right now. I mean, since Carter, was it Carter the first name or the last name? Wasn't that the guy they drafted, like the last prep pitcher they drafted, the one they took in the top 10, who ended up signing in Japan? I guess I could just pull it up. I don't know. It was an interesting move he made. Like we haven't seen anything really like it since. Carter Stewart, maybe? Carter Stewart, was that? Come on, internet. Don't be slow. Carter Stewart is what I'm thinking. My internet just does not want to help me today. But yeah, so I think when you're looking at what they've done, it's mostly been college guys since Carter Stewart, and it's been the lefties with Ryan Kusinek was not, but then you had Jared Schuster. There's not a Wake Forest arm to draft here, so I think I would lean Wisenhunt with, your sleeper being, you got guys, if they want to go for ceiling, Justin Crawford, Dylan Lesko are kind of interesting players just on the board here. Mariners, another team that has gone very college heavy until last year. Amongst the pitcher grouping of who's left, I think Gabriel Hughes kind of stands out. I think your sleeper is Peyton Graham, again, because of performance, but I think Hughes is probably the guy just because he has actually had, Tidwell was hurt. There's some injury issues. Justin Campbell is huge, but doesn't throw like he's huge. It's I think Gabriel Hughes is typically kind of viewed in that top 3 to 4 arms, and then you, like I said, Peyton Graham with his high-level performance. The Cardinals have gone ceiling, but I also know they took Michael McGreevy, not necessarily a ceiling pick a year ago, more of a safety guy because of his command control numbers. In this particular situation, they've liked age-relative models. They do like, youth and performers. I think just going for ceiling, power, things like that, Justin Crawford still being on the board is probably too good to pass on. I can't really remember them going prep arm that recently in the top of the round, and I can't get an answer to if they have or haven't because, oh, there we go. Baseball Reference finally worked. Yes, Carter Stewart was his name. But on the, let's see if I now switch this to the Cardinal side of things. Let's see, the last prep pitcher was, we had some college arms. Jake Woodford. And then before that, it was Jack Flattery. So, yeah. Now I'm kind of curious to see what Carter Stewart has done in Japan. He's playing for SoftBank. That's a high-level team. He's got in 2021, he was at SoftBank and at 2 different levels. And he was missing bats, walking a lot of guys, but missing bats. But, the Cardinals, they like ceiling. Crawford's there. I think he is probably the guy who makes the most sense. Henry Bolt. Henry Bolt, a bit of a sleeper, just because, again, big athletic tools. Blue Jays. A team that will just kind of do anything. They do love bloodlines. We know that much. They're a team that will go that way quite often. Kind of looking for that. The draft a year ago, they took the injured Gunnar Hoagland. Ricky Tideman's been a fantastic pickup for them in the second round. If you redo that draft, he's probably a first rounder right now. So they went with some name value in an arm. Would they take another arm here? I mean, potentially. They don't have a lot of pitching in their system. But maybe go Peyton Graham. He has been connected to many teams in this area. He's really raised his value. Sleeper selection at this point in time is probably like Brock Jones of Stanford, who finally put together, who at points in time was thought to be maybe a top 10 pick. Oh. I'm going to make it Brock Jones. I'm going to move away from Graham. Why? Because Brock Jones was he played football and baseball. He came in the year with big expectations. He's this year's Jude Fabian. He started slow, but then really came along late. Ended up with, he's a big-time athlete. Just makes some sense right here. Red Sox, another team that has kind of been all over the place. They'll just redraft Judd Fabian, right? I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure he would not agree to that. You have to get an agreement to have a player allowed to be redrafted. That's the team drafts you and you had a bad experience. You can tell them no. Sorry, just looking at why my phone is blowing up. Nothing too important. Cavs acquiring draft picks. Oh my goodness. It'd be nice if Baseball Reference would work right now, which is, what I use to just look at recent pick history when I don't have it memorized. Fun content here. So the Red Sox have gone kind of heavier on prep. And again, when I look at who has been drafted and who hasn't been drafted, I don't know if they're going to have the room to necessarily sign someone like Dylan Lesko, but I think Brandon Barea, they could make it work, and I think him being there is a little bit of a surprise. And I think, if they're going to go prep, and they've gone prep with their last 2 picks, he makes a ton of sense there. Also, just kind of considering the Rays model, he makes a lot of sense there. If they went college, is kind of a sleeper there. I mean, Jordan Beck's probably the toolsy guy that most would consider. Yankees are a team that likes college. I mean, they've had some great picks. They've also had some great prep picks. They've had some that haven't gone well, but they've been typically more conservative. And it's when you're looking at who is left from that college grouping. Just going through, I'm sure there's someone that slid that I just completely forgot about because this is all from memory. Gabriel Hughes, I believe I still have there, right? Because didn't I switch that one up? I was going to have him go. No, I had Hughes go to the Mariners. I didn't end up switching that up. And then I had the Cardinals. Was the switch up? Peyton Graham still being on the board is, I think, a bit of a surprise. I think they would go with him. I think he is, with his performance of late, I think he makes a lot of sense. There's been some talk about them going way off board with this pick. And they did take Trey Sweeney a year ago early, which is a bit of a surprise. But, yeah. So we'll go with Peyton Graham with the sleeper being, like I said, who's my top college pitcher right now? I got Prelipov. I've got, I guess, Justin Campbell, probably. So Campbell is your sleeper. He does fit some of what they like. Or Blade Tidwell. White Sox, Tucker Tolman, who I had in our mock, and I think a lot of people have him there for a reason. If not him, if they go back to their college-going ways, Drew Gilbert probably makes sense. I don't like a ton of free swingers when they draft guys, and and Gilbert is a guy who controls the zone, so I think he's the sleeper there. The Brewers like performers. They'll also take, preps, players that are sliding. I right now really hate you, Baseball Reference. It'd be nice if you worked for any of these picks. It's the weirdest thing. When you're looking for the Brewers and what's left on the board at this point in time, if you want to look at college performers, you want to look at guys who excelled in tough conferences. So just kind of looking at the SEC types, I think Drew Gilbert makes sense. They're a team that goes sometimes performance over other things. You look at what he was able to do. You look at a lot of those age relative stuff. You look at it, strikeout percentage. You look at walk percentage. You look at things that show a little more safety. That's Drew Gilbert. Jacob Milton also had that great year. He might be the sleeper. Astros at 28. I still think Kumar Rocker, this is kind of his floor to me. I think they would be the team that takes that risk and tries to pump up his value more. Jacob Miller from Ohio gets rumored at this pick as well a few times, so keep him in the back of the mind. The Rays are at 29. At this point in time, I almost feel like Lesko has to slide to a team that has a comp pick or a competitive balance pick or a comp pick. Those one of the supplemental picks. I don't see, the Rays don't have that. Could they shift heaven and earth to make it work? Probably. But do you want to shift heaven and earth for someone who's hurt? Do you want to maybe take someone a little bit lower? And that's where Robbie Snelling, the left-handed pitcher, is kind of ascending, is still on the board. It makes a lot of sense at this point in time. Your toolsy types, in terms of like who's left on the board, who are those plus athletes if they wanted to go that way. Henry Bolt is a name to know, I feel like, this late in the draft. Maybe Walter Ford would fit them, the Vanilla Missile. Yeah, those are the players that stand out. The Giants are 30th, and they have a low pool. I think prep talent is probably not where they're going to lead. I think it's going to be a college guy. And when you look at what's left from the college grouping, is it Jordan Beck? Is it Jude Fabian? Those are, it feels like there's a bit of a gap. Sterling Thompson out of Florida. Those are probably your hitters. An interesting sleeper here. They haven't. Let's see. They've gone mostly college bats. Baseball Reference is being junk. Sorry. I love Baseball Reference. Not today though. I think just looking at the pool of what's left, the sleeper would be Peyton Pallett, who he can really spin it, and if he is healthy, he's probably a top 10 pick. He is not healthy, so we don't have those choices. Logan Tanner would be another catcher for them. I think he's going to go somewhere in this range. But I think Sterling Thompson's the guy who's kind of rising from this group. Jordan Beck has that swing and a miss, which is an issue for some people. And Thompson is a guy who's still only 20. Big kid, strong kid. Really had a good year at Florida. I don't think anyone expected him to be the first Florida outfielder off the board when we started the year. But yeah, that's who I'm going to go with there with the sleeper. If being Peyton Pallett, I already said. Rockies at 31. Jordan Beck. What did I have him go in the? I had him go Jace Jung. So yeah, Jordan Beck, Toolsy outfielder. Just gonna do these as kind of a fast thing here, since just for fun, because it's already gone long. Reds, Dylan Lesko's been rumored to them, and they have all those picks. So yeah, there we go. Orioles, from the college grouping, Blade Tidwell. He's a really interesting arm who had some health issues but missed a lot of bats and has velocity. He is still on the board at this point in time, so go ahead and slot him there. Diamondbacks, who's got the ceiling? Who are the guys with ceiling at this point in time? If you're going to take a big swing... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back, actually, to the Orioles. I'm going to keep Jude Fabian there. That's who they wanted a year ago. Maybe they hope they can get him around 2. But I feel like they just pop him here and it makes things easier, so that then that cleans out. Oh man, see, it's a problem with doing this off the top of my head, not writing anything down. It just changes the pick. I think he makes more sense. Jude Fabian at 33, so 34 Diamondbacks. Ceiling, upside, all that fun jive. Kind of looking to see who I have not selected so far in this thing. Who are the players who have some name value, players who seem to be a little bit ascending. Kind of curious, is there anyone that I feel like there's got to be at least 3 guys I just completely forgot about that are probably on someone screaming at me about if anyone watches this. So it's like the consensus board, Jackson Ferris. Okay. So the quick let's just reset it. Okay. I should have reset it at some point. Cam Collier 1, 2 Drew Jones, 3 Jackson Holiday, 4 Brooks Lee, 5 Elijah Green, 6 Tamar Johnson, 7 Kevin Prada, 8 Jacob Berry, 9 Cooper Jerpe, 10 Jace Jung, 11 Chet Williams. I'll say 11 Zach Nito. I'm actually going to flip that. 12 Gavin Cross, 13 Connor Prilip, 14 Jet Williams, 15. Did I do multiple picks here? Did I double dip? This is why you write things down. This is why you don't do what I do. 15. Wow. So, because I can't remember who I put there, I'm going to... Oh, Daniel Susak. I gave him the catcher because he's still on the board and they've been looking for catching forever. 16, Jace DeLauder. 17, Brock Porter. 18, Cole Young. 19, Dylan Beavers. 20, Carson Wisenhunt. 21, I want to see, is that where I went Gabriel Hughes to the Mariners? I think I went Hughes at 21. 22, I went Justin Crawford. 23, I went Brock Jones. 24, the ceiling player at this point in time that I thought fit them. I have another blank out. For the Red Sox. I didn't have them. Oh, Brandon Barea. 25, Yankees, Peyton Graham. 26, White Sox, Tucker Toman. 27, Brewers. I went kind of safe. Drew Gilbert. 28, Astros, Kumar Rocker. 29, Rays, Robbie Snelling. 30, Giants. See, and this should be easy because it's like I literally just did the Giants pick. Sterling Thompson, Florida, I believe. 31, Rockies, Jordan Beck. 32, Reds, Dylan Lesko. 33, Orioles, Jude Fabian. So if I'm just kind of scrolling through and looking at things, in terms of consensus board, Jackson Ferris is left. Blade Tidwell is left. That's who I originally had to the Orioles. Justin Campbell is left. Oh, I said Jackson Ferris, I believe, already. So it's Ferris, Tidwell, we got the arms. Ferris, Tidwell, and Campbell are kind of like the next three guys up. Diamondbacks at 34, Ferris. Like I said, they like ceiling. And Jacob Melton should also probably be in that group. But I'll go with Ferris there. 35, Royals. Would they go prep? Would they go another arm? Spencer Jones. Being sizist and liking what he can do and his athleticism, he might make sense there. 36 to the Pirates. Having them go with the college guy if they tried to come back around and get talent. Just who is kind of your big names left here. Maybe J.R. Ritchie, maybe Jacob Miller. I think kind of that initial group of prep pitchers I've worked my way through. Anything crazy off the board type? So the Pirates, I feel like... Okay, change one of my picks to have someone go. Maybe Henry Bolt, going for athleticism and ceiling. Not everyone's cup of tea, but there. Guardians then at 37. So Thomas Harrington is also kind of in this range, but he doesn't really fit their age relative model. They don't draft a lot of draft eligible sophomores. Justin Campbell fits what they look for in a pitcher quite a bit. He is still there. He makes a lot of sense for them with that selection. Rockies. Man, that's the thing. That's another team that just kind of has this draft on lock, huh? So Rockies had Jace Jung and then another player right there at the top of the round, Jordan Beck. And then what might they go with now? Like who? So again, the consensus, top players left. I mean, does Blade Tidwell have the right pitches for Colorado? That becomes the question. I mean, they used to love big velocity there. I don't know if he's necessarily their type. That's always the thing. Like, you had to have a very specific pitch mix to pitch correctly in Colorado. This is where I'm kind of like, can I throw just a weird player there? I'm not sure if he's necessarily got the mix for him. Here's the thing. I'm not going to throw him a pitcher, for the sake of throwing a pitcher. I'll throw Logan Tanner, the catcher. Give them someone internally. It's about his range. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, Logan Tanner. And then the Padres at 38. There's a lot of ways this could go. Like I said, just in terms of names, Tidwell is sitting there, and it's him, Peyton Pallette. Those are my highest rated guys left, or those are the highest rated like consensus guys left. I think those might be it. There's a few guys like Adam Mazur from Iowa who could be in here. Jacob Melton's still being on. I'm going to give him Melton. It's a team that's needed an outfielder forever. The fact he's still on the board is probably a little bit of a surprise. I think it's just because not really perceived to necessarily have plus traits anywhere. Can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So Jacob Melton, yeah, there we go. And then I believe, don't the Dodgers have the next selection? Go ahead and throw that pick out just for funsies at this point in time because they didn't have a pick. Yeah, so the next two picks, they're not before we get into the full-on second round. Los Angeles Dodgers, and I think they would take a Blade Tidwell and try to work with him at this point in time. And I think, again, that's just relative value. They haven't had a problem taking college performers with good velocity and helping them just become better players. So then that brings us back to Boston, who went college with, this is the Jude Fabian comp pick. So amongst the college grouping left, I had him go prep pitcher with their top pick. I know, dead air. It's what everyone likes. This is kind of where everyone's kind of the same. Mikey Romero. A lot of things you liked about York a few years ago, it fits with Mikey Romero. So let's go ahead and throw him the prep shortstop right there. And that ends that. I mean, you get to the top of it, and Baltimore's there. That could be a Jude Fabian pick if they don't pop him at 33. They could go a few different ways. But yeah, this was my for fun thing. Get an hour of the day while the kid napped. So thank you to anyone who watched. And make sure to check out Locked On Guardians for the better produced, less work in the margins type of deal where I have everything put together. That's why this was on the personal stream. So it's just me having some fun. Thank you. Bye.